Yes, I was with Nicholas last week in New York, so jet lag. Now, I've got only 10 minutes, and we are a little bit overrun, so I don't want to keep you away from your lunch for too long. Now, Greater Bay Area, all you need to know about it, and I think it's fantastic to have this session after our previous panel, because it's set a scene very well on the Belt and Road Initiative. And Greater Bay Area is a little bit related to the Belt and Road Initiative. The reason is because Belt and Road is very long, very big. Any one city along the Belt and Road is only one dot. And the Greater Bay Area is going to be able to make this dot bigger. And also, the Belt and Road Initiative is very big and is there for a long term. People say it's decades. I would say it's a century blueprint for development. However, is so big that sometimes it's hard to comprehend this project. But I think Greater Bay Area presents you with something much more immediate and much more mature. I think one of the topics about the Belt and Road earlier was on the risk, and I'm sure projects in the Greater Bay Area is much more bankable than some of those Belt and Road Initiatives projects. Now, how big is Greater Bay Area and why you should be paying attention to it? One measure which will be very useful is actually on the GDP there. 1.5 trillion is about 12% of China's GDP, and if you use that to measure with one country, you can use it to measure with Australia. Australia's GDP is 1.3. So the area of this, the GDP of this area is about 110% that of Australia. So that shows you the size of it. And how does it differ from other Bay Areas? You know, you've got Tokyo Bay Area, San Francisco, New York Bay Area. Now, the other Bay Area basically is a very loosely structured term referring to the area. However, the Greater Bay Area is actually something that we have an agreement signed on that. So actually what it means is that we've got a lot more communication on the development. We've got a lot more commitment to communicate and also to work together, to collaborate. That's very important because we don't want to create cutthroat competitions in this area. And the other three Bay Area actually would be a very good reference on what's the potential of our Bay Area. Again, this is not, we will not be competing among these four Bay Areas, but rather it will be showing the potential. Now, on the third row is the GDP. I mentioned about that 1.5 trillion for the Hong Kong and Greater Bay Area. If you look at the other Greater Bay Area, New York is about 1.6, Tokyo is about 1.7 trillion US dollars. So for that, you can see that they are a bit bigger than our Bay Area. However, if you look at also the fourth row, that is the growth rate of the region, you can see the growth rate of the region is 7%. Versus 1% of New York, 2% of Tokyo. So it shows you the momentum of the growth of the region. And I think Mr. Anwar earlier in the panel mentioned about the GDP contribution of China. And over here, you can see that with the GDP growth in our Bay Area, the GDP, the total GDP will be exceeding the others in a few years' time. But of course, this is not the main aim of the GDP area because we have a very high GDP, mainly because it's a very big piece of land with a lot of people. However, what we are aiming at is on the fifth row and also on the sixth row of this chart. One is on the GDP share of the tertiary industry. Now, as you all know, the Greater Bay Areas, if you look at the other San Francisco, New York, and also Tokyo, the tertiary composition of the GDP is 70 to 80%, whereas we are at 60%. So you can see that this is something that we will be able to grow, and this is the element which will be able to give a very high yield, especially when you're looking into the future where technology is so important. And then it's the per capita GDP. If you look at that, the the Greater Bay Area of ours actually is only 20,000 US dollars, whereas if you look at San Francisco Bay Area, it's 5 times of ours. For New York, it's 4 times, and Tokyo is 2 times. So actually, if we aiming toward that, the potential for growth actually will be much bigger. Now, there are a lot of slides. I don't think I could finish that in 10 minutes, so I'll be skipping quite a number of them. Now, infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure is important because it's a conduit for transportation, for maritime, for shipping. On the other hand, it's also a source of business for the shipping industry. Now, we have just done one bridge over here. There's the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau bridge. But actually, as some examples, to improve the mobility and connectivity of the Greater Bay Area, this is Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and other provinces and other cities. We will be building more bridges at the river mouth, because obviously right now, before this bridge was built, it was completed last year. Cargos they have to go up and down to Hong Kong or Shenzhen. But now with this bridge, it's actually much more accessible than before. So actually, this will also be bringing in cargo into the Hong Kong seaport and also airport, because obviously before it was not as accessible. So actually, the manufacturing activities over this area is much less than this. So actually, it means that the land over here is cheaper, and the labor are cheaper. So actually, it means that in the future, we believe that there will be more cargoes being generated in this area, and that will be feeding onto the Hong Kong port also. And Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, this I mentioned that is finished late last year together with the high-speed rail. Now, why are these two important? It's actually more important in terms of how management use their time. Because without this bridge, then actually the traveling time over here would be by ferry. Whereas this one, without the high-speed rail, the traveling actually from here up to, say, Guangzhou, back then it took 2 hours, and now it's 50 minutes. And the main thrust of benefits of this is that for this, the management, if you're basing yourself in Hong Kong, now I think all you know that you've got a very busy schedule, and how to make use of your time is very important. Without this kind of connectivity, then actually the traveling to, say, into mainland China will take much longer. We use these 3 hours of traveling as a measure, because in one day, if you want to travel out and travel back to your home base, then actually 3 hours out, some meetings, and then 3 hours back is actually the pattern. So actually with the high-speed rail, now we have shortened this 2-hour journey into 15 minutes. It means that now your circle, instead of going from here to here, it will be way out of this map. It means that you could be able to make use of your time much more efficient. And I think all of you know that we've got very good location within Asia. So no matter it's about the Asia travel or within the China travel, it will be much more efficient. Now, one thing worthwhile mentioning is that within the Greater Bay Area, we've got 3 of the top 10 ports. And of course, it means the business volume. And of course, I mentioned about the accessibility to the western side of the Pearl River Delta. So we believe that that will be helping to grow the port traffic more. And one thing I must mention about Hong Kong is, of course, about the financing and leasing. Now, the leasing is something that we are trying to develop. So actually, we have this work group within the government working on this tax regime for leasing houses on ship leasing. We've got a very good success on the aircraft leasing already. So a lot of the leasing houses, they've set shops in Hong Kong for aircraft leasing. So the next element we're trying to work on is on the ship leasing. So please keep an eye out for it. And the marine insurance is another element. We are reducing the marine insurance tax in Hong Kong from our 16.5% on profit to 8.25% on marine insurance profits. Besides this, actually, some of you, if you are in the insurance sector, you may know for reinsurance, we have now this C-ROSS scheme in place, which is that if the mainland insurer is placing reinsurance risk outside of mainland China, Hong Kong, now we have a special status, which will be allowing the insurance companies in Hong Kong to accept this risk with much smaller reserve. So that would be very useful and will be making the use of funds much more efficient. And one last item, my time is up already, but one last item is on technology. Now, of course, we are very keen on technology, and actually for the government, we've got different injections of funds into the technology sector, no matter is on the research institutes or on the company. On the company, we've got this super tax cut, which will be reducing the R&D expenses. The tax reduction on that will be 300% on the first $2 million, and after that it will be 200% reduction. And then of course we have other matching grant, and also we also have another scheme which is reimbursing the R&D expenditures up to $10 million. So the main aim is that we will be trying to support the R&D and also technology development. And of course, this will be done hand in hand with the Shenzhen side, because Shenzhen is the strongest technology hub inside of mainland China, and they've got all the talents and all the big names over there, Tencent or Huawei. So with that, we are also establishing this technology loop between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And it is a location where we can have research institutes and also facilities set up over there, making use of both sides, talents from mainland China and also the financial platform in Hong Kong. It's a very quick presentation, but I hope it will give you some idea, and I hope that we will be able to exchange some cards in the later, after, maybe in the lunch or something. But I think you've got a whole week of activities, and I'm sure I'll be running into you in some other activities. Thank you.